I will be able to leave this earth, knowing and people knowing that I was a good person.
That seemingly gentle remark from Malcolm Jamal Warner echoed like a prophecy. It was not just a wish for a spiritual legacy, but a sigh from someone who had lived his entire life under the spotlight, constantly having to prove his strength, endlessly carrying the image of a flawless icon on his shoulders. And then when Warner passed away, suddenly whispers of a secret diary began to spread. A small notebook believed to contain words never before read, deeply personal confessions he never shared publicly. Were they merely the weary reflections of a man who had once tasted glory, or a silent indictment of the darker corners of Hollywood that had always surrounded him? The answer remains hidden, but the allure of this mystery makes it impossible to look away. Do you want to know what truly lies behind those pages? Stay with us until the end, and don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss this never-before-told story. And to understand why the diary, whether real or just a rumor, continues to stir such deep emotions in the public, we need to look back at Malcolm Jamal Warner's journey. Because before becoming a mature and profound icon, he was once just a boy on the small screen, awkward but sincere, who gradually transformed into America's brother in the hearts of millions of viewers. The boy who became America's brother. On August 18, 1970, in Jersey City, New Jersey, a baby boy let out his first cry bearing a name already weighted with legacy. His single mother, Pamela, named him Malcolm Jamal. Malcolm to honor civil rights activist Malcolm X, a symbol of unyielding will, and Jamal after jazz pianist Ahmad Jamal, the embodiment of talent and rhythm. That name was like a prophecy. This child would carry both the spirit of resistance and artistic flair, and would one day become a part of America's cultural memory. From the age of 9, Malcolm Jamal Warner showed a passion for performing. While many of his peers were preoccupied with childish mischief, he was captivated by the camera, eagerly attending amateur acting classes. His mother, both his support system and first manager, was willing to drive for hours just so he could attend a small audition. Pamela didn't just see a child's passing enthusiasm in her son, but sensed a resilient energy, a light that, if nurtured properly, would one day shine brilliantly. The fateful moment arrived in 1984, when Malcolm Jamal was just 14. He beat out countless candidates to land the role of Theodore "Theo" Huxtable in the hit sitcom The Cosby Show. When the first episode aired, America suddenly had a new son. Audiences adored Theo Huxtable, not just for his innocent humor, but for the warmth and relatability of a child in a typical black family. From living rooms in New Jersey to apartments in California, viewers saw their own children in Theo, intelligent, witty, sometimes clumsy, but always lovable. With The Cosby Show, Warner went from an unknown teenager to a national phenomenon. His portrayal of Theo earned him a 1986 Emmy nomination for Outstanding Supporting Actor, a rare feat for someone his age. The press called him America's son, and audiences spoke of Warner with a rare sense of familiarity, not a distant celebrity, but the boy next door everyone wished they knew. But behind the studio lights, Warner was a teenager learning to balance life. His day might begin at school in Los Angeles, rush to the set for hours of filming, and end with studying under the glow of backstage lights. Yet Warner never let exhaustion show on camera. A 14-year-old carrying the expectations of a nation, that was no easy burden. Some nights, after millions laughed at his witty exchanges on TV, Warner only wanted to sit quietly in a corner, wipe off his makeup, and just be himself again. Amid the whirlwind of fame, Warner stayed grounded thanks to his mother's guidance. Pamela refused to let her son become a spoiled Hollywood kid. She demanded he maintain his grades and encouraged him to take arts classes to broaden his perspective. Thanks to her strict supervision, Warner was not only a golden boy on screen, but also a responsible teenager who listened and respected others. By 1988, at just 18 years old, Warner published his memoir, Theo and Me Growing Up Okay. In it, he recounted his experience growing up while tied to a role that had become iconic. Writing a memoir at 18 wasn't an impulsive act, but a reflection of Warner's introspective nature, his desire to leave behind his thoughts in words. That very book later led many to believe that Warner often kept a personal diary, a habit to release his thoughts once the spotlight dimmed. Fame and turning points after The Cosby Show. When The Cosby Show ended in 1992, Malcolm Jamal Warner was only in his early 20s. yet he carried an immense title, the boy Theo, that all of America had once known. For an actor who had grown up in the glow of teenage fame, this was both an opportunity and a challenge. Because stepping away from the embrace of the Huxtable family, Warner had to prove to Hollywood that he could stand on his own as an independent artist, not forever remain the adorable kid from TV. The opportunity came in 1996 when Warner landed the lead role in the sitcom Malcolm and Eddie. This time, he was no longer the clumsy son, but a grown man living with his best friend, played by Eddie Griffin. The show ran for 4 seasons on UPN until 2000, bringing Warner back to audiences in a completely new image. Black viewers especially loved Malcolm and Eddie for its modern, relatable portrayal of life while maintaining intelligent humor. For Warner, this role proved he could step out of Theo Huxtable's shadow and anchor a show of his own. Alongside acting, Warner began exploring roles that audiences least expected. He ventured into production, notably serving as executive producer for the educational animated series The Magic School Bus, a program beloved by millions of American children. This was a pivotal shift from actor to a multifaceted artist capable of creating value from behind the scenes. He understood that a sustainable career didn't rely solely on the spotlight, but on mastering a variety of industry skills. Not stopping there, Warner tested the waters of film. He appeared in the action movie Drop Zone 1994 and later in the Tuskegee Airmen 1995, a film recounting the story of black pilots in World War II. Though not lead roles, these appearances helped expand Warner's image, proving he could adapt to various genres from drama to action. But what surprised the public most came from music. Malcolm Jamal Warner was not just an actor. He was also a musician, a poet and founder of the jazz-funk band Miles Long. Music for Warner wasn't just a pastime, but a medium to express emotions that dialogue alone couldn't convey. The pinnacle came in 2015 when he, along with artist Robert Glasper and singer Lala Hathaway, won a Grammy for Best Traditional R&B Performance with the song Jesus Children. This victory confirmed Warner as a true, multi-talented artist able to make his mark in music, a space where he wasn't confined by the shadow of any role. Still, Warner's journey wasn't always smooth. Throughout the 2000s, he grappled with the age-old struggle of former child stars being boxed in by the audience's memory. Many directors and producers still saw him through the lens of Theo Huxtable, hesitant to offer him grittier roles. Warner once admitted that at times he had to settle for supporting parts, but he always viewed them as a form of training, never a surrender. That perseverance is what allowed him to maintain a steady presence on screen for decades. In recent years, Warner made a strong comeback with memorable roles in major television series. He played attorney Al Cowlings in the People v. O.J. Simpson American Crime Story 2016, a small but impactful role. Then came The Resident 2018-2023, where Warner portrayed Dr. A.J. Austin, a complex, sharp, and deeply emotional character. This role not only brought him back to a familiar place in viewers' hearts, but also proved that Warner, now in his 50s, could still leave a unique mark. He was no longer just America's brother on sitcoms, but a mature artist capable of resonating with multiple generations of audiences. However, it's impossible to overlook the enormous shadow of Bill Cosby. A mentor, a colleague, but also the source of unresolved pain. When dozens of women came forward with allegations against Cosby, his legendary image collapsed, taking with it the cherished memories of The Cosby Show. Warner, in many interviews, couldn't hide his sorrow. He said the Cosby he knew was always kind and a role model to many, but he couldn't deny the painful truths that had come to light. What saddened him most was that the collective legacy of the cast years of building a cultural icon together was suddenly tarnished by the scandal of one man. Warner candidly admitted, if not for the controversy, The Cosby Show could have returned like Fuller House or The Conners, achieving new success. "We could have made a lot of money," he said, a short sentence yet enough to expose the sense of loss, the sudden and shocking death. On the afternoon of July 20th, 2025, Playa Grande Beach in the Caribbean region of Costa Rica was bathed in dazzling sunlight. The waves rolled gently. The sea breeze was salty, and tourists continued swimming and playing, as on any ordinary day. No one could have imagined that just minutes later this beach would become the site of the painful farewell of a man beloved by American television audiences for 4 decades, Malcolm Jamal Warner. It was said that Warner was enjoying a family day, taking a short vacation after a hectic work schedule. He walked along the water's edge, played with his young daughter, and then stepped farther out into the sea with a friend. A sudden large wave and a strong undercurrent pulled them beyond the safety zone. In that moment of chaos, all the laughter and cheerful conversation disappeared, replaced by cries for help and the urgent footsteps of beachgoers rushing into the water to assist. The friend made it out, but Warner was swept away, collapsing in the arms of strangers, desperately trying to bring him back to shore. Rescue workers raced against time. Resuscitation chest compressions, CPR. Every move was urgent and precise, but the tide of life proved too strong. Just minutes later, on the cold, wet sand, they had to accept the truth: Malcolm Jamal Warner could not be brought back. The grim news spread quickly. For the American public, it was an unbelievable shock. Warner, the man who had once been the innocent Theo Huxtable who had recently appeared in new television projects, was now gone at the age of 54 on a distant beach. Many refused to believe it, assuming it was a false rumor or a cruel hoax. But as news outlets began confirming one after another, the truth was undeniable: he had passed suddenly and forever. In the days that followed, new pieces of the story emerged, revealing a fuller picture. Warner had not been in perfect health. He sometimes complained of fatigue after long shooting days. But no one thought it would lead to such a tragic end. In fact, Costa Rica's Caribbean coast, while breathtakingly beautiful, is also known for its dangerous rip currents, waves strong enough to overwhelm even experienced swimmers. Warner simply wanted to enjoy a normal afternoon with friends and his daughter, but nature chose a cruel way to close his journey. The moment became even more haunting when it was revealed that his daughter had been standing on the shore, watching her father just minutes before he left the sand. Thankfully, she had not entered the water when the accident occurred. But the image of her father walking away and never returning will surely become an unerasable memory in her young heart. Eyewitnesses on the beach recalled that several strangers didn't hesitate to dive into the violent currents to save Warner. One used a surfboard, another became so exhausted that they required hospitalization. Though the outcome didn't change, these efforts proved that he did not pass away in indifference. There were hands trying to pull him back to life, and that at least brings some comfort to those who loved him. News of his death didn't just shake Hollywood. It touched the hearts of audiences worldwide. Colleagues, friends, and those who had worked alongside him spoke with choked voices about a kind, calm, and humble man. To them, Warner was not only an actor, not only a multi-talented artist, but also a genuinely good person. A simple phrase full of deep respect. Perhaps the one who felt the most pain was his mother, Pamela. She had single-handedly raised and guided him through the difficult early years, witnessing her son become a cultural icon of America. Faced with such a profound loss, she chose to respond with as much grace as she could. She said her son did not suffer, that he had fulfilled his mission in this world. It was the voice of a mother both comforting herself and protecting the memory of the son she loved most deeply. The death of Malcolm Jamal Warner is a harsh reminder that no fame, talent, or public admiration can stand against the fragility of human life. A beach, an undercurrent, a moment of inattention. That's all it takes to end the journey of someone who once made millions laugh and cry. Yet amid that loss remains a gentle truth: he did not leave this world alone, but surrounded by hands trying to save him, by the anguished cries of loved ones, and in the endless love of his audience. In the sound of the waves that day, a chapter of life closed. And from the very void Warner left behind, people remembered more clearly what he had brought: joy, laughter, kindness, and quiet strength. A sudden and shocking death, yes, but also a reminder that behind the glow of fame, human life remains so very fragile. The mysterious journal and the rumors immediately after news of Malcolm Jamal Warner's death spread. Social media and fan forums began buzzing with a new story: that in Costa Rica during his final hours, he had left behind a notebook, or what many bluntly called a journal, containing pages that revealed the truth behind his calm exterior. No one knew exactly who first told the story, nor could anyone produce concrete evidence. But the lack of confirmation only fueled the fire, as if people needed a physical symbol to hold on to, a final clue to explain the sudden death of someone they believed would always be okay. According to rumors, the notebook was found among Warner's belongings, a worn, leather-bound book filled with hurried scribbles. Some claimed it was nothing but unfinished song lyrics and ideas for music projects left incomplete. Others insisted they had read haunting confessions: "I'm tired of living in the shape of an idol I no longer recognize." Some were adamant that one page read, "The light makes me shine, but it also makes me lose my way." What's striking is that this wasn't the first time Warner had been associated with personal writing. As early as 18, he had published a memoir titled Theo and Me Growing Up Okay. He had written poetry, delivered speeches about art and life. For someone known to write and reflect, it wasn't strange to imagine him keeping a notebook close. That plausibility gave the story of the final journal even more momentum. Fans saw nothing implausible in Warner, a private, thoughtful man, leaving behind words as a testimony to his inner world. In the early days, the rumor was even upgraded with fabricated details. A hotel staff member accidentally read a few pages. A close friend found it and kept it hidden. Or a tourist took photos before deleting them out of fear. All unverified stories, but powerful enough to stoke curiosity. The blur between fact and fiction quickly turned the notebook into an urban legend born in the very first days after Warner's passing. People often attach a final word to public figures because it makes the tragedy feel more digestible. For Whitney Houston, it was a journal under her bedsheets. For Kurt Cobain, a suicide note. For Heath Ledger, the Joker roll journal. Now with Warner, the public too needed a document, a relic to read what lay beneath his serene expression. There's a collective instinct to believe that every death must come with an explanation, and when reality offers none, they create a code to fill the void. The more important question isn't whether the journal existed, but why people needed to believe in it. Because to audiences, Warner never appeared fragile. He had no major scandals, no intrusive tabloid exposés, no descent into Hollywood's shadows. He was the image of kindness, perseverance, and artist with balance. That's why his sudden death on the beach left an unexplainable emptiness. Could someone like him really pass without leaving behind anything but memories? The idea of a journal, even just a rumor, made people feel like he had spoken, even if only in silence. But assuming it did exist, what might its pages contain? Likely not earth-shattering secrets or explosive accusations about Hollywood. Warner was never one to seek drama. More plausibly, it would contain personal reflections, the pressure of growing up under a spotlight, the weight of carrying a generation's nostalgia, the heartbreak of a first love lost, the anxieties of fatherhood in a complicated world. Such truths told in silence would carry more weight than any scandal. Some believe the journal, if real, unveiled the darker side of the entertainment industry, the harshness, the typecasting, the media's cold indifference to artists as people rather than products. Warner had hinted in interviews that the hardest part isn't acting, it's everything that comes with it. If that statement had been written down in clearer terms, the journal would be nothing short of a quiet indictment. Even though no one has seen it with their own eyes, the journal remains vivid in the collective imagination. On forums, fans share imagined entries, as if piecing together his thoughts for him. Someone wrote, "I just want to be normal, but they keep forcing me to be an icon." Another composed an entire poem attributing it to him as if it were lost lines. All of it reveals a yearning to understand, to hear, not just from Warner, but from within themselves. In the end, the mysterious journal has moved beyond the realm of rumor. It has become a symbol, a metaphor for voices ignored in the entertainment world. Perhaps Warner never wrote any of those words, but the public wrote them on his behalf as a form of collective apology, a belated acknowledgement that they hadn't truly listened while he was alive. And that may be the saddest truth of all, that sometimes it takes an artist's silence for the world to finally listen. The journal, real or imagined, remains like a shadow surrounding Warner's death. It's mentioned in conversations, in articles, in tribute videos. And perhaps it will continue to live on as a kind of legend, a scentless letter from an artist's life. One thing is certain: if Warner were still alive, he likely wouldn't have cared for these speculations. But for the public, that little book is the way they hold on to a piece of the soul of someone who left them far too soon. The dark side of Hollywood and the reflections Warner left behind. From the story of the mysterious journal, people began speaking more openly about something Malcolm Jamal Warner may have carried within him throughout his artistic life, the cracks hidden beneath Hollywood's dazzling light. If he truly had the habit of journaling and leaving behind private writings, those words wouldn't need to expose any shocking secrets to leave a lasting ache. Because Warner himself, through his way of living and the things he shared over the years, had already shown that the dark side of the entertainment industry isn't found in dramatic scandals, but in the invisible, compounded pressures few are willing to admit. Hollywood has long been seen as a golden land where dreams are painted in shimmering hues. For Warner, that dream arrived very early, but because it came too soon, it also became a trap. At just 14, he was a household name across America. People adored Theo Huxtable, and naturally assumed the boy would always remain joyful and carefree just like on screen. But real life doesn't follow a script. Warner grew up under the scrutiny of millions of eyes, and in Hollywood staying normal can be harder than becoming a star. The dark side of Hollywood for Warner wasn't about sex scandals or drugs, as people often imagine when they speak of the industry's shadows. It lay in the invisible confinement. Decades after The Cosby Show, he was still often referred to as Theo. Directors, studios, and even audiences often didn't see him as a mature actor with a diverse range, but as the boy etched into their memories. For any artist that's a burden, the past becomes a gilded cage, beautiful but suffocating. At one point, Warner said, "The hardest part isn't the acting, it's everything that comes with it." That short statement says it all. When he stepped off set and the lights dimmed, it wasn't the characters or the performance that lingered, but contracts' expectations ratings. And in that world, people often overlook a simple truth: artists are human too. They get tired. They have the right to feel fragile. Hollywood also carries another dangerous habit, glorifying endurance to the point of numbness. An artist who says they need rest is immediately deemed weak. An actor who turns down a project to be with family is labeled irrelevant. Warner, a gentle and reserved man, often wished to retreat. But in an industry driven by speed and glamour, that desire is often ignored. People waited for him to step onto the stage to perform, to shine, while his moments of silence were barely noticed. And one cannot overlook another systemic dark side: the unequal lens through which black artists are viewed. Since the 1980s, even with all the progress in Hollywood, Warner and his peers have carried an additional burden. They weren't just acting for themselves, but were seen as representatives of an entire community. A misstep, a bad role, could be blown up into a disappointment for a whole generation. That kind of pressure made Warner's path even heavier. He not only had to prove his own talent, but also had to prove that his community was worthy. Amid all that weight, Warner chose to live quietly. He didn't chase drama or headlines. He didn't let scandal overshadow his work. Instead, he started a band, played jazz, wrote poetry, produced educational animation. These things might not have returned him to box office stardom, but they gave him balance. They were his quiet message in Hollywood. Sometimes surviving in a healthy way is already a victory. If the rumored journal did exist, its contents likely echoed what Warner had already softly said to the press, that he wanted to be seen as a person, not an invincible symbol. Perhaps he wrote about the grief for a lost first love, the quiet joy of fatherhood, the unease of standing in applause that didn't always feel real. These thoughts, though not sensational, are the clearest evidence of Hollywood's darker side, where the simplest voices are often ignored because they lack the drama to make headlines. On the day he passed, friends and colleagues all called him a good man. That wasn't an empty phrase. In a world where many lose themselves to fame, Warner held on to his kindness. And perhaps that is the legacy he leaves behind, a reminder that artists don't need to live as legends, they only need to live as human beings. As Hollywood continues to manufacture new stars, only to watch some of them collapse under exhaustion or scandal, Warner's story becomes a mirror. It prompts the question, do we truly listen to artists, or only focus on what they produce? Do we allow them to rest, or keep pushing them to stay on stage? And more importantly, can we still love them when they are simply themselves, without the spotlight, without the role, without the character? Maybe Malcolm Jamal Warner never wrote those words in a secret journal. But the way he lived and the way he left was enough to become an unspoken manifesto about Hollywood's dark side. Light can make someone shine brightly, but it can just as easily lead them astray. And sometimes the most humane thing an audience can do is not to cheer, but to listen when an artist whispers, "I just want to be myself." Public reaction following Warner's death. The sudden passing of Malcolm Jamal Warner seemed to bring the entire nation to a standstill for a moment. The news spread quickly, from brief afternoon reports to dedicated evening specials. International media outlets also reported widely, as Warner was not only a familiar face on American television, but also a part of the fabric of pop culture for over 4 decades. On social media, millions of posts were shared within just a few hours. Fans reposted images of young Theo from The Cosby Show, recalling episodes that once made them laugh with their families. Many said Warner wasn't just an actor, he was a childhood friend, someone who had grown up with them in their living rooms in front of their color TVs. His death wasn't just the loss of a star, but the loss of a collective piece of youth. Colleagues and artists in the industry expressed their grief with words that were brief yet deeply moving. They didn't call him a legend, nor did they use dramatic praise, they simply emphasized his kindness and sincerity. A good man, that phrase echoed repeatedly through tributes, becoming the clearest testament to Warner's personal legacy. In an industry often filled with noise and spectacle, he departed quietly and was remembered in that same quiet grace. The media approached the story with care. Instead of focusing on tragic details, major publications chose to highlight Warner's career, from the boy Theo Huxtable to the mature actor and the resident from Grammy-winning jazz artist to a devoted father who shielded his daughter from the media spotlight. Memorial programs didn't just replay scenes from his shows, they also revisited his reflections on family, his profession, and mental health. In doing so, Warner was remembered not just as an actor, but as a complete human being with all his joys and struggles. During the days of mourning, many people visited locations associated with Warner's legacy, bringing flowers, candles, and handwritten letters. One letter read, "You made us laugh, and now we cry for you." Another note contained just 2 words, "Thank you." These gestures revealed that Warner had entered the public's inner life more deeply than any award could reflect. For the media, Warner's death also sparked broader conversations about the pressure placed on artists, the fragility of life, and the public's responsibility when loving a public figure. More than a few journalists asked, have we truly paid attention to the quiet signals artists send, or do we only begin to understand once they fall silent forever? In the end, public and media reactions met at a shared point: sorrow, but also self-reflection. Warner's death, as sudden and painful as it was, led many to reconsider how they treat the familiar faces on screen. Because behind the laughter and the spotlight, artists are human, too vulnerable, and in need of being heard and understood. Perhaps the journal people keep referring to will forever remain a rumor, an unconfirmed piece of a puzzle. But precisely because of that ambiguity, it has become a symbol of something Malcolm Jamal Warner longed for to be heard in moments of silence. Whether real or imagined, the journal has made the public pause to remember that behind fame is a living, breathing human being with joy, sorrow, and a fragile vulnerability. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Join us as we continue uncovering other journal pages. It was a connection nurtured over time, grounded in shared laughter.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.